Hello and welcome to the Galen Eagle podcast. I'm your host for today, Dr. David Aguilar, and we're continuing our mini series on computer science and technology and how they relate to society, education, and pretty much everything else. So, today we're going to be talking about one of what I think is the most interesting and widely discussed issues in the field of technology, and that is security. Security involves a lot of related areas like online privacy, identity theft, cyber scams, hacking, and so on. And so I've invited a special guest to join us to discuss this topic, and that's Mr. Zain Doeni. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes,
Yes, he is currently an adjunct lecturer here at Galen University, and he's someone who has extensive experience with regard to our topic of discussion for today. So, Mr. Doeni, welcome to our podcast.
thank you very much, and I appreciate the invitation I was sent out to be a part of this podcast and to contribute to the young minds who will probably view the video later on in the day or when it's released.
Yes, and thank you very much. I think that we're doing some good work here. I think that as we popularize and publicize these areas that people, I think, get a little bit intimidated by, science and technology, and they realize it's not something that's scary. It's something that's designed for their benefit.
Indeed, I think the conversation needs to continue. We had the National Cyber Symposium a couple of years ago, and I think that was the first and only one held in Belize. Uh,
Yes, yeah,
we stand factors that the pandemic happened and so forth, but this was a conversation that needed to continue throughout because things have changed since the pandemic, and the pandemic has really changed the way we view technology as a nation.
yeah. I know in the past year I've been invited to a couple conferences, and that's relatively new. There haven't been a lot in the past, as you said. Before we go any further, though, I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, about your experience and your background, how you've applied cybersecurity to your field of experience.
Well, I'm Zain Doheny. I'm native of Orange Walk, married. I have one son. I, my educational journey started at Muffles Junior College in Orange
Okay.
Walk,
Yeah, we
where I
got a lot of good
studied.
students from Muffles at Galen.
Yes, where I studied law and sociology. After that, I joined the Belize Defense Force in
Hmm.
2009. Then having been in the Defense Force for 6 years, I decided it was time to further my education, and I was shopping around to see what degree in Belize is similar, close to law and sociology, and it was very hard to find. And gladly,
Yeah.
Glenn had an undergraduate program that allowed me to easily fit in, and I enrolled in the criminal justice program. After completing Galen, I knew I wanted to pursue graduate studies, but
When did you graduate? What year did you graduate?
in 2018, I
Okay.
finished.
All right. Yeah.
Yes, I knew I wanted to continue, but locally it's hard to continue in the field, and I just the whole topic of cyber security and all the stuff that was happening really attracted me, and I decided to enroll in a master's degree program from the University of San Antonio de Murcia in Spain,
Okay.
and it was pretty challenging. The degree was actually in Spanish, so
Hmm.
Spanish is not really my native tongue, as everyone, you know, and in Belize, moving on to hearing the different dialects because they speak different, they take the words and so forth. It makes it a bit challenging, but it's not impossible. I completed the degree and I was very impressed with how it changed my mind about technology and how technology is being incorporated in the world. I was never a technology savvy person. I did not have a background in any coding, computer science. I couldn't even fly a drone to save my life. So I'm just saying that to say that the field is open for anyone who wants to try. You can come from a very diverse background. You don't necessarily have to have a computer or IT related background to transition into
Right.
cybersecurity.
It's true. When I got my associates, it was in math and chemistry, and then I transitioned into the more technical fields in my undergraduate degree.
and moved on.
Right,
So,
moved on.
leading, I've been in the BDF now for 14 years.
Right.
I'm currently the operations and training officer at the Infantry Battalion. I held previous posts in training recruits who are joining the Belize Defense Force, and I've worked in other areas in the department. And cybersecurity is a relatively new conversation, even for us in the BDF. We have ventured into talking into it now because it has become a topic that is really out there, especially in the military.
Well, sure, of course. I imagine it's quite necessary to
The,
keep up
the
in terms of.
military, in the military, we have different domains of warfare: land, air, sea. We have the space domain, and now recently created was the cyberspace domain, which is a new era of warfare.
Virtual battlefield, right?
Yes, so the US has led the way creating what they call a US Cyber and Space Command.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually have a Space Force, who is actually a new military entity dealing with this whole issue of cyber and all the threats that are associated with it. So it's something very important, and it's happening right in front of our eyes, believe it or not, the transition and so forth. It is a conversation that has been, it started at the strategic level and is slowly moving into our tactical operations, how we employ and how we fight. Because we have to know that the military, like other militaries, depend on technology a lot. And with
Right.
technology comes risks. And we have to understand these risks to be able to effectively employ our technology when we fight war. So that, in a nutshell, is
Well, thank
our.
you for that. I think that's a great introduction to the field, especially for someone who might be coming with no information about this. Just to emphasize how important it really is. And I want to always tie what I talk about in this show back to what's good for Belize, what is important to our citizens. So with your military background, I don't want you to give away any military secrets here, but how would you say Belize is doing in terms of its armed forces keeping up with the global trends? You mentioned that the U.S. is kind of setting the pace, right? So how would you say Belize is doing in terms of keeping up and keeping our citizens safe?
Well, I think, like all conversations, citizen security is a touchy topic right now.
Mm,
The citizens are concerned about the conventional crime that is happening, robberies, and so forth. So the realm of cybercrime has really changed how people view stuff. So when when we speak about cybersecurity, it's information. It's important to differentiate between cybersecurity and information security, because people tend to use the two terms interchangeably, which
yeah.
is not really correct. Information security is actually the umbrella term used to refer to protecting critical information, whether in a physical state, in a or in a digital state.
So
When
like a actual document or like a file,
cyber
right?
documents,
Yeah.
all the rules of having a clear desk policy at your work,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not leaving confidential files for everyone to see,
Yeah.
classification of documents,
And that's all
restrict.
over the news these days too, right?
Yes,
Talk of
and
classified documents is quite a hot
and
topic these days,
there's means how to deal with all of these stuff.
right?
And cybersecurity is more geared towards when we, for in the layman's term, work with computers and things that are in some digital form. So it is important to just clarify that, because people tend to mix it up, and that is where, in the technical and expert definition of it, it is two different areas of study.
So what would you say to Belizeans who wonder why this is a big deal? They might say, Belize is kind of a small country. We don't have a lot of resources. Are we really a target for like international cybercrime? What's the importance to the Belizean of our understanding and really being savvy about cybersecurity?
I think it's a very important topic. We are a digitally connected world nation as well. We rely heavily on receiving information through digital platforms. I
Hmm.
was doing some research and found some very interesting information. 284.5 thousand people in Belize have social media accounts. So that in itself paints the way that this is something that should be a concern to everyone.
Sure.
We actually have seen globally an increase in cybersecurity from 2022 to 2023, which rose 38%
Just
in
within the last year.
the amount of
Wow.
breaches and incidents that occurred.
Okay.
And the monetary value associated with these breaches is upwards the scale of 164 million US dollars, and that's a very conservative figure.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
The average breach costs company or corporation around $2.4 million.
Wow.
So it is something the average person, especially in today's time, everyone has some type of smart device.
Right.
You keep sensitive information on it. You keep your whole life is basically in the palm of your hands in a cell phone. Your banking information, your your credit cards, because we tend to, with technology, it is geared towards making life easier, and we try to find the easy ways out in terms of not having to enter a password every day.
Yeah.
You know, we try to look for the ways that are very easy, but we have to understand that every program, every technology has its pros and cons. It has risks associated with it. And in the world of cyber security, risk is a word that will being continue to be mentioned, and you'll see it as something being very redundant when I mention the word risk. Because risk is all about risk management,
Yep.
having a proper risk management guidelines, and risk management guidelines does not necessarily only mean in the corporate world, but to your personal life as well.
Sure. And you mentioned breaches to companies. I know that Belize is moving, pretty quickly towards online services, cyber banking, e-commerce, people ordering stuff from Amazon, with their credit cards and so on. What would you say would be the major vulnerabilities that an average Belizean might encounter, and what can they do to kind of keep themselves safe when they engage in these activities?
Well, it is. I think you have to look at it twofolds. There's a legal obligation that the company has to take on, and
Hmm.
there's one that you as an individual have to take on. Majority of the time, breaches may occur on the company's side.
Okay.
And it is very popular in the Belize in terms of all these phishing scams, because cyber criminals, cyber hackers are able to breach into the database of, let's look at the telecommunication company, and get your phone number and a
Hmm.
pool of different numbers to target. So you have to see that Belize recently enacted data protection laws, and there's more legislation aimed at cyberbullying and so forth. In
Okay.
Europe, there's a GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which actually places fines on companies for not having certain cybersecurity policies in place.
That's
In
interesting.
place, it's nothing,
Yeah.
because we have a duty to protect you as a customer, firstly, by making sure their networks, by making sure their applications are of the highest standard and in line with international regulations, especially when you look at the payment card industry, the PCIs, because you're actually putting your data out there, credit card information, and leaving it to them to actually hope that they don't, your identity is not stolen and so forth. On your side, you have an onus in terms of, I always use this analogy with, in terms of when we look at simple steps, passwords, and so forth. A password is like a toothbrush. You don't share it, and you need to change it regularly every 6 months.
Okay.
And we have to look at things such as multi-factor authentication, which I
Yeah.
am very happy Galen has
Galen has started to
started
do
to
that this year.
implement
Yes.
in their LMS systems.
Right.
So it is showing that they're understanding the risks associated with stuff.
Hmm.
When you surf the web, there's a lot of bad out there. It is, and the cyber criminals are able to mask it as legitimate sites. When you look at the whole stuff of social engineering, which is a topic on its own, and you can spend the entire day discussing.
Absolutely.
People send you links, people send you messages on a daily basis on WhatsApp, Messenger, and the average Belizean will readily click. They don't understand Trojans, spyware, malware, and all of these stuff associated with cybersecurity. And you click and oh, nothing happened. The link is not good. You're not understanding that
You're not
something
downloading
has
something
happened.
dangerous. Right.
And when we will touch more in terms of endpoint encryption,
Hmm.
the average device, smartphones are not equipped such with the necessary software to counter malware.
It's true.
The processing skill, speed, RAM, and all the like. We see some trial versions that are available. The average Belizean loves trial versions because they don't pay a penny. So
Right.
this in itself has different risks associated with it. So we really need to understand that we have to be very careful when we're putting our information out there. When you receive a link, enter your email, enter your accept all cookies. All of these stuff are very concerning that the average Belizean just clicks, and clicks. And this
Well,
happens.
let me skip to this question then. So, what advice would you give to the typical Belizean who spends a significant amount of time on the internet? How can they remain safe online? So you said, be careful about links you click, right? What are some practical things they can do to maintain their security online, their privacy online?
Hovering over a link is one.
Okay.
Because when you hover over the link, it will actually give you the true domain that it wants to access. Because it can read www.galen.edu.bz, but
Hmm.
in reality, it's not taking you to the Galen website. It's
So you
taking
move
you
your
to one.
mouse pointer over the link and you just kind
Yeah,
of read the little pop-up that comes up on the screen.
yeah.
Okay.
It's actually taking you to a socially engineered website that looks like the Galen platform,
Okay.
and it wants you to enter your password username. This is the start to being hacked
Hmm.
because you will think it's legitimately the Galen site, and you enter your credential and nothing happens. However, something did happen. The person on the back end of the socially engineered website has now seen what your password and username is. Majority of persons tend to use the same email or the same password
Same password
on
for everything.
multiple sites.
Sure.
So the average cyber criminal will now use this on multiple sites to
Hmm.
see if you have a presence there. There are actually open source applications online that I can enter your username and see what all websites you belong to or social media platforms.
Wow.
This is more leading into the discussion of what we call open source intelligence or OSINT, which
Hmm.
is a very interesting topic by itself. OSINT has really changed the game for the military, and it has changed the game for cyber criminals because they do their research similar to Galen students. They actually are well versed persons and they actually research on corporations prior to them or persons if they have a targeted person they want to look at. They research your presence online and see where all your posting stuff and so forth
So
prior to. Yeah, go ahead.
just for the sake of our audience, I just want to explain what open source just means, that software that's freely available on the internet
Yeah,
for anybody to download and use. So that's just what we mean by open source.
yeah.
It's just available online. If you could find it, you
Everything
download it
that you
and use it.
can find online and it's free.
Yep, it's free. So you talk about how this is an active current threat right now. And so for many of the people who are listening to us talking, it may already be too late for them. They may have already been hacked. Someone may have already obtained their vital information. Um, what would be some red flags? What would be some warning signs they could look for to tell that they've already had uh, some security breach for their information, like they've had their identity stolen or somebody has access to this stuff? Is there anything they can do to tell that they've had this happen to them?
I'll take it the question twofold
Okay.
on from a corporate business standpoint, university, whatsoever. Then I look at it from a private citizen standpoint.
Okay.
Or from a corporate standpoint, company level, normally cyber security professionals or IT professionals don't realize a breach has occurred immediately if they don't have all the softwares and
Right.
like the same system information, incident management, and all the applications that are available. They realize this months after when these
Months.
breaches occur, and they try to do all the stuff reactively after the fact that they have been breached. They
Right.
try to upgrade their policies. They try to upgrade their software. There's a lot of patches released.
Hmm.
And when we speak about, let's say, zero-day attacks that are not known to these professionals, it is a new threat. They don't realize it because persons who actually invest in zero-day attacks have the resources and finances available. They are not sitting down in a thatched house somewhere in the jungle just trying to send you random phishing emails. They are a well-organized group,
It's
stick and
targeted and it's intellect. Yep. Hmm.
and they have bright minds, similar to all academics. And in majority of cases, they are academics themselves
Mm.
who actually are grouping together to actually make money.
Right.
So when you look at it from the citizen standpoint now, there are a lot of open source, again, websites. For example, Have I Been Pan? That is a website that you can plug your emails, username, and it gives you a history of if someone has tried to use that email in some other region or so forth.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. Then you have the conventional password resets occurring.
Mm.
Someone will reset your account. We have ransomware or so forth, people asking you for, or sites asking you for money because they're claiming no, they have
They'll delete your
control of
drive or
the
something if
system.
you don't pay them. Yeah.
So, and many people fall for it because people have sensitive information that they don't want out there. And on the social media platforms, we have people's account being taken over because our persons posting stuff that and they are saying now that it's not them because
Mhm.
someone else has access to their accounts.
Right.
So on the citizen level, the signs are readily more evident because the cyber criminals want some rapid gain in terms of trying to send a message to solicit funds from probably your mother. They will send you a message. I'm sick. I'm trapped in Europe. Please send me $1,000 because the
Right.
police will lock me up. And they send that through your account. Your family will take it for granted. They know you're in Europe. and your phone is probably not working on that end, and send you the money to some malicious site or some Western Union accounts that these guys
Hmm.
have set up. Or they use the dark web and trade in bitcoins, which is easier to mass. So on that, it is very easy. The signs are more evident on the citizen side as compared to a university
Okay.
or a corporate institution.
Because I guess the thieves would want to make quick use of it before you catch on, right? So they're going to try to.
Yes,
There's a burst of activity,
there's
and
a
that was.
window that they need
Yeah.
to actually exploit.
Right.
And if they don't do it within a certain period, you'll probably realize you're blocked or you're out of your account. So they need to, time is of the essence when it comes to that.
Okay. Good. Well, that's really, I think, valuable information. So right now you are adjuncting with us here at Gale and teaching in our networks course, actually. And since you and I are both educators, I kind of want your opinion on when would be a good time to start introducing cybersecurity as a topic to students in our educational system. When would be the right age, do you think, for doing that?
Yesterday, we were out.
Yesterday?
So
Uh,
that's the time period. But you
in
can
terms of the age of
never,
the students, though, right?
the students, you have to start early.
Okay.
If you look and you just look around in our communities, children have digital devices from the age of 5.
Yes. Right.
And they're very versed on how to use YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
how to use some of the other applications that are available on their system. A majority of the times, parents take it for granted that children are not exposed, but they are. We need to start introducing these topics all the way to the primary level. I would say safely at the standard 4, 3 level when they have gained some sort of maturity. But it's never too early. We can start earlier. But for it to have a flow at an early age, children have social media accounts,
Mm-hmm.
children have all the risk factors that are associated with breaches. And cyber criminals may breach into a network through another device. It doesn't have to be necessarily the target device, but that device is similarly connected to the same network.
Right.
So that is the vector that they use to enter into that network. But I believe it is a safe bet that we, or it is, I believe that we can do it at an early time. Standard 4 primary school level. The level of information will, as in education, increase as the student progresses into secondary, tertiary, and the university level studies, where we can include more technicalities. We can start speaking about phishing scams, man in the middle attacks, and
Mm-hmm.
man in the middle attacks, for information and just to shed some clarity on it, are attacks where a person poses to be a legitimate source of, let's say, Wi-Fi.
Okay.
They log on to a network. They give off a feed and say, "I am open, free Wi-Fi. Log in." And we love free Wi-Fi because when we run out of data and so forth, we
Mm-hmm.
readily subscribe. Yeah, let me go and
Right.
these persons, they have entered, for the man in the middle attacks, they have entered a legitimate source and they are actually in there for more than likely criminal reasons, monitoring the network, seeing what sites you browse, seeing some of the usernames,
Mm-hmm.
because there are ways to do this in the more technical side. They know which device you're using because we have MAC addresses with each device.
Right.
And there are applications that are free outside, such as like Wireshark, which is a network analysis software that can monitor two-way handshake, three-way handshakes that are more technical terms in terms of watching you on the web. And they, through these types of attack, they're able to get crucial information from you. They may also be able to download information from your smart device that has been connected. So I'm hoping that we spoke about Galen. We've had this conversation in the past about what would be a good topic or a good program to introduce at Galen. I believe cybersecurity can fit in all programs at Galen.
Yeah, that is something we're talking about for sure here at Galen, and I agree with you. I think we need to start early, but of course, by the time they're a university student, a lot of the stuff that was going to happen to them has happened, right?
Yes.
But certainly, yes, Galen is looking at introducing cybersecurity as a concentration of our computer science program, along with several others, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on. But since you brought that up, then what would you say are some of the major topics we need to cover in that kind of a concentration? So, like, if they were going to get a degree in computer science from Galen with a concentration in cybersecurity, what would be some of the really key? And I realize that this is a technical question, but I think it might be interesting for our audience to understand this as well. What kinds of things will we teach in those courses that concentrate a student towards that field?
Security standards would be
Security
the first
standards.
one.
Okay.
We have a list, exhaustive list of security standards in the field of cybersecurity.
I remember seeing those things about 15, 20 years ago, and it was
Yes.
expensive back then. So I imagine it's even.
All the ISO standards,
Yeah.
NIST that have been developed, and these guys have millions of dollars only for research and development. They have written the books, so it's up for us to follow. So I would say security standards, network security,
Okay.
uh, endpoint protection for me is big. Uh, I would say business continuity. A lot of people don't realize cyber security affects a lot of business continuity
Of
plans.
course.
When institution such as Galen is breached or some other university, if you don't have the proper business continuity plan, backups, uh, and so forth, you're basically out of business for a while till you can recuperate.
Right.
So all of these topics, we need to start discussions early. I am thinking the Internet of Things is another topic. The people have smart refrigerators for one.
Automatically ordering what you're missing, right, or what you're
Yes,
getting low on.
the risks associated with this is large. They're
Yeah.
significant. I would even say that we can put in other topics or in we can filter into other faculties. For example, criminal justice, having a digital forensics course as part
Oh,
of the
that would be really good.
criminal
Digital
justice
forensics.
pathway. Yes, because in Belize, the judiciary is having problems prosecuting cybercrime.
Mm.
Why is that? Because there are not enough experts who can go to court and testify on cybersecurity. And the liars will shred anyone who is pretending to have the knowledge. And you
Sure.
can't go to a court and testify unless you can prove that you have some expertise in the area.
Right, and we would need to have experts to even make the laws that we can say that have been broken, right? So
Yes,
that's a big topic right there, because that would require not a restructuring, but certainly adding a lot of layers to our legal system, right?
yes. I think digital forensics, cyber delinquency, and a lot of the programs from the computer science program, such may be used or introduced as an elective to vamp that restructure of the criminal justice program.
Hmm.
So I am seeing potential to work in the business faculty. OSINT, for one,
Right.
is used by the HR department to recruit a lot of people.
Okay.
And teaching OSINT is good because I will give you an example of how OSINT is used in the area of human trafficking. As an OSINT investigator, human trafficking, as you know, is a problem in Belize.
Yes.
And open source intelligence, you may collect a lot of information on targets who are involved in the world of human trafficking right now.
Mm.
You can actually find a lot of ads that have that have potential of being a human trafficking ad online, being posed as a being posted as a massage parlor. There in, for example, San Pedro, because the tourists flock
Ah, I see.
to San Pedro,
Right.
and we exploit young girls, or we have cyber, or we have human traffickers readily supplying the demand that they're asking for.
Mm.
13-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls, and it's on social media on Belize by itself. And the police is not picking up on it because they are not trained on how to actually look
Right.
for it.
Training would be another issue that we need to look at.
Because training, and similar right now to the in the BDF, we are trying to boost capacity building right now in terms of
Hmm.
investing on in our human resources. We are probably the first institution in Belize trying to launch a cyber intelligence awareness course
Okay.
for personnel. And
Mm.
I believe that we have potential to make a lot of programs at Galen more relevant, introducing cybersecurity.
Yeah,
Because
from what you're saying, I really do hope that Galen becomes an advocate for getting that education out there, because it's from what you're saying, it sounds like cybersecurity really touches on a lot of our national problems, a lot of our social problems. Um,
yes,
I hadn't thought yet. Human trafficking, obviously, they're going to have a network of communication as well, right? And so, um, cybersecurity absolutely be involved in how they do things and how we would stop them from doing things.
very much so. And
Wow.
the, I think the discussions can can happen. I believe that we're poised at this moment to actually go full force
Mm,
and actually get these programs rolling. I saw in some other institutions cybersecurity being introduced. The quality of the program will be dependent on who is teaching and so forth.
sure.
But I believe Galen will, as always, produce a high quality product before we try to sell it to someone. And the Galen principles that Galen incorporates in their services can't be how to say it. It has been proven that Galen has a brand in Belize, and I believe that once we put all the bright minds together in the various faculties, we can start pushing out new products that are relevant. We can look at technology. You're speaking about the AI and robotics
Yes.
in the last podcast that you had with Dr. Barrow, which was very interesting. That I see it happening at the Belize, I think it's Belize Elementary School with the robotics team they
Yeah,
carry.
they're starting pretty young, and that's really exciting.
Yes, and they are actually winning some
Competitions.
some prizes and making
Hmm.
a name for themselves globe out there in the international stage.
Yeah.
So we similarly can create that digital lab, and I believe that will be a game changer for all programs we have, because teachers, it can be in the education faculty, business faculty, it can be in the environmental science
It
program.
really is at the core of everything. I mean, one of Galen's pillars is sustainable development, and you
Yes,
really can't have that unless you leverage the emerging technology to help you with it. It's a part of the conversation in terms of how a nation develops.
teaching with emerging technologies is a big thing now in the
Yeah.
education faculty. I think there are master's degree being given in that specialty alone, that concentration. So I believe this is the time now to run with what we have been discussing in the FAST department. And I am hoping that when the program is launched, that the amount of enrollment will be vast because it is something new.
Yeah.
The other markets, there is a need for cyber professionals, firstly.
And I think conversations like what we're having now, right, will allow people to realize that. I
Yes,
think a lot of people still do believe that technology is something for like North America or for Europe or Russia or somewhere. They don't think of it as being something that's applicable to their lives in terms of career choices, in terms of a job they could get well paid for and actually enjoy doing. So I think that as we have more conversations like this in the public view, we awaken that awareness in our citizens. I think that's a really good, important, and positive thing.
in the US alone, there is a shortage of over 500,000 cyber professionals.
Right.
In Belize, it's the same there. And interestingly, if you look at some of the job vacancies that are being pushed out there, they're asking for cybersecurity
Of
as
course.
a qualification.
Right.
Master's degree in cybersecurity, bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. And that's a game changer alone because these corporate insti- these institutions such as BEL,
Hmm.
they are mandated now by IFC standards, the International Financing Corporation or Fund, because they have to have trained professionals in
Right.
these departments. If not, they don't get grants and they don't get all of the assistance they're asking for from agencies such as the IDB because they look at security as a serious concern.
And rightly so, because I mean, BEL is responsible for so much of what goes on in this country. I mean, from our
Yes.
governmental communications to
Although it's a
everything.
private public partnership,
Yeah.
it is still subjected to these uh, legislative obligations. And companies now look, let's say Galen,
Hmm.
companies, before they do business with Galen, they may ask you for if you have a cybersecurity policy
Right.
before they want to work with you. I think at the basic level, each company needs to create a cybersecurity policy.
And so that ties into our entrepreneurship program as well, right? Because if
Yes,
you want to have a business, you have to be aware of all of these possibilities and
we,
potentials.
that is another avenue there, a
Right.
business continuity plan.
Yes, you mentioned that, right?
So your entrepreneurship undergraduates need to be able to develop a business continuity plan.
Right.
That is another area we have now put in information security into the entrepreneurship
Entrepreneurship
bachelor
program.
degree. So there is room to actually, if we can think it, it can happen. So there's a lot of ways to fit cybersecurity into these programs, and here
Absolutely.
again, it is very, it is, we're poised right now to go full force with it, and I'm confident that it will happen.
Okay. Unfortunately, it looks like we're running a little bit low on time. But finally, if there's one big thing you'd want the public to know about cybersecurity, what would that be? What would be the message you want to give to the public about cybersecurity?
Human error is responsible for majority of cybersecurity incidents. That's the
Okay.
biggest takeaway. 92% of cybersecurity breaches is
Mhm.
as a result of human error. It's not about lack of software technology,
Okay.
antivirus, and so forth. It's clicking links. It's browsing sites that you're not sure of. It's responding to uh, emails that you do not know the source, and
Right.
there. So human error, and it's all about a cultural change and cultural shift. We have to create a culture of cyber awareness in Belize.
A culture of cyber awareness. Okay.
And once we are able to create a culture of cyber awareness, we are going to have less incidents. I know the Ministry of e-governance or the e-governance unit right
Hmm.
now is currently doing that in the public sector, trying to create that. Uh, they are trying to do that in terms of meeting the goals of the Belize digital agenda.
Uh-huh. It'd be
Getting,
great if they'd partner with us for some of those activities because that sounds like something that we could mutually benefit from some cooperation there.
yes, public-private partnerships, I think, is going to help with this. And it requires, I asked this, I'm going to pose this for you to answer yourselves. Have you guys seen any cyber awareness ads on the television lately? Limited or to none, I would say,
Yeah, because
because
I
we're
can't
not
think of any.
pumping out that information that is necessary to our citizens to be able to fight this. And we saw it with the banks the other
Hmm.
day, how Heritage Bank and all these guys were going through all these stuff. And it was human error that was responsible majority of the times for the actual breaches. It's not all the systems and softwares and so forth. It was human error. Leaving your computer signed in, someone
Mm.
getting access to your account. Social engineering played in because you can create a fake bank page. So if you take anything from this conversation, let's change the culture we have in Belize. Let's become a cyber, I would say a cyber aware. I would say let's become a nation that is cyber aware because we need to realize that it can have catastrophic repercussions going down. As we become more connected to the internet, for example, the Vital Statistics Department is moving in that route, having your board papers online,
Right,
having your marriage certificates being at a touch of a button. You probably can download it PDF.
right.
We need to see that this brings risks, and we have to be prepared to deal with it. So that is my take on cybersecurity. And I thank you again for having me. This is a topic I love to speak about, so it
No,
can.
and it is so important. I mean, I think this is one of our more important conversations we've had about technology recently. So I really appreciate you being here and spending time with us, sharing your expertise with the country. And I hope that eyes that fall in this program are the kind who will help us to get interested in it as a career. But not only that, people who are invested or who are in charge of the school policies, the governmental policies, as you say, the private and public connections, the standards that need to be put in place for people to feel confident doing business with a Belizean company. It's threaded through so much of what we do and what we are these days. So I really do appreciate you spending time with us this evening.
And thank you for having me. And I'm hoping that sometime, and I'll stay tuned for a follow-on podcast, and that probably we can build on these conversations.
Oh, I think we need to continue this conversation at a future date. But for those of us who tuned in for this session, I really thank you for your attention. I hope you learned something from this. I hope it'll be of a benefit to you. And please do continue to tune in for the Gale and Eagle podcast on Thursday evenings. And we will see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.